Hey guys, welcome to REKŌD Lab. This week I had an amazing opportunity to sit with Dr. Tim Erwin to discuss energy system development specifically for BJJ athletes. Now, and just a heads up, this is my first time doing this, so I plan on doing more of these and I plan on getting better at interviewing. But Dr. Tim takes us through a little bit of his background and more specifically, one of his amazing physical feats, other than being a pro cyclist, that he accomplished. He speaks on that. And I think that's important because it shows that not only does he know and understand the science behind the energy systems and what he's talking about, he's also an accomplished athlete, BJJ brown belt, a pro cyclist, and then he did an amazing ruck competition / just test that he'll discuss. That was pretty amazing to hear, and I'm glad you're here to hear it. But later on, I'll put some chapters in where you can go through and see the rest of the conversation where he discusses energy systems. Now, we only talk about one energy system, really. He kind of covers a little bit of them, but this is just part one of many times. So I'm hopeful, and I think we're going to do it. We're going to meet hopefully once a month if I can, peel away from his busy schedule and just give you guys more content, more specifically, not just BJJ, but also human performance, lifespan, wellness, just being able to get the most out of your body and allow him to dive into topics like DEXA scan and how your visceral fat affects lifespan, muscle mass, how that affects lifespan. He also offers things such as peptide therapy and hormone replacement therapy as needed. So there's many things that he does that we're not even scratching the surface on yet. But I'm excited to have Dr. Tim Erwin on, and I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time. I've trained a lot of MMA fighters in the past, like a lot of, from UFC all the way to lower level, and then like wrestlers. And there's a specific way that we would work through their energy systems. Okay. And that the demands are different than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And so I thought it'd be awesome to have you come in and explain more about like the energy systems of BJJ through the lens of you. But with that being said, like who are you? Like what do you do, and how can you like help with that specifically?
Yeah. Nice to be here with you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, man. First one. Yeah, I'm excited. This is like it totally like had an idea I want to have you on. So like first one.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I should probably talk a little. I mean, as much as I don't like talking about myself, I should probably tell people who I am. So, as you said, Dr. Timothy Erwin or Tim Erwin. I have both an MD and a PhD. I got a PhD first in biomedical sciences and concentrated in pulmonary immunology, took a bunch of physiology, biochemistry, molecular biology courses. And then probably halfway through the program, decided that I maybe didn't want to do it the rest of my life. I was kind of trained, working on animal models. I thought, I don't know if I want to do that for, until retirement.
Right.
So I decided to go to medical school. Finished a PhD in like June, started med school in the August immediately after that.
Wow.
Roll straight through. But, before that, I was an athlete. I was an endurance athlete, a bike racer, road racing. And I'd done that since 15.
Wow.
So kind of always had that interest in physiology, anatomy, but more so just performance, like how to get better, like what does it take to get better? Because kind of doing it all on your own, it's a lot of trial and error. And so I was always like, how can I minimize the mistakes and, increase the benefits? So that's kind of a background. Of course, that fell by the road once I started my studies. But once I got out of residency, so I graduated medical school, I did residency, finished residency, I started doing fellowship training, which is an additional year. And I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that time. And that was 15. So trained up until, I guess now a year and a half ago when I had my injury. I tore my ACL.
Yeah.
But during residency, I got into other things. I got into like some ultra endurance, like rucking events and that sort of thing. So
yeah. Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but what is that thing you did? What was it called? You did this like special forces. What was
selection? Goruck Selection.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So I mean, its build is like it's based on special forces assessment and selection. So that like SFAS it's a 2-week thing. This is really 48 hours, but it's 48 hours nonstop. And back when I did it, not to sound like back in my day,
yeah.
but it has been 10 years, so there wasn't a lot known about it. It was real kind of hush hush. You didn't really know what to expect. There were some reports from a few people who had finished it, because there's really not, of all the people that started, the finish rate is pretty low. And so back then you didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I knew that you have to carry 45 pounds dry in your pack. You basically have to stay up 48 hours. But beyond that, didn't know what to expect. And I can still remember, I did it back then. They would do it. They had several events across the country. So there was one in like Austin. There was one in San Francisco. There was one in the DC area. I did the one in Boulder in Colorado. So probably not the brightest move to do it, in the mountains at altitude.
Right.
But I still remember going to that park, showing up, and stomachs just full of knots, not knowing what to expect. And you see all the other guys and you're kind of milling around. Everyone's nervous. No one really knows. And then it was like out of a movie. Over the hill, these 2 dudes come walking and they look like they meant business. And they were ex-Green Berets, and they were the ones who were going to put us through it. And so it started, and basically you kind of have a buy-in where you have to do the Army physical fitness test and meet the standard.
Okay.
So that's like max push-ups in 2 minutes, max sit-up in 2 minutes. And then kind of geared towards what they do in special forces. So a 5-mile run for time, and then a ruck of unknown distance. And so, we do all that, and I think most people made it through. And then they say, okay, get your bags. We're going to start the ruck. And they staggered it. So we didn't start all together. We just started one by one at like 3-minute intervals, if I remember correctly. And by this point, we started the first thing at, I think, 7:00 p.m. on a Thursday. And so by the time we're getting ready to do the ruck, which we don't know how long it is, we don't know what the course is, it's dusk. I mean, it's starting to get dark. And they're like, okay, roster, and they don't address you by your name. You're a roster. So I was roster number 11. I still remember that. The other thing is they tell you to bring this food, right?
Yeah.
In the sort of like, instructions before you show up. So, you pack, you spend all this time meticulously like, okay, what do I need? I need Cliff Bars. Gels weren't as much of a thing then as they are now. I'm going to take some mango slices. I had like a little med kit. I had all this stuff. And, they do an inspection before you start because they want to make sure your ruck is up to weight. And if you're underweight, they say, you better make this weight. So go over there and put some rocks in it.
Oh.
And then they weigh it again. But if you come overweight, you don't get to take it out. So there were some guys who showed up underweight, and then they had to go just we were by a creek. They just went to the creek, started putting rocks in their bag. They came back. I mean, they were dry like 53 pounds.
Oof. So
they were already 8 pounds over plus water.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're going through it, and they find your bag of I forget how they call it, goodies or whatever, and they just take it. So you don't even have the food.
Yeah, you wasted that time.
Yeah, I wasted that time, all that energy trying to figure out like what I should take, what's going to be the best, whatever. It's like, as it turns out, you don't get to eat anything.
Yeah.
At least for the first 24 hours.
And you've already been up because you were getting there, like prepared, so then that's 48 hours past that time.
Exactly. And that man, you hit the nail on the head, because I remember waking up in the hotel. Like I flew up there by myself. I'm in the hotel room. And I wake up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sleep in. I think I even took an Ambien the night before.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it was like 6 a.m. Boop.
Yeah.
Eyes wide open. Couldn't go back to sleep. I tried to sleep a little bit before, like from 3, because I had some friends up there and they let me kind of use their place as a home base. And so I was like, I tried to lay down, and after about 30 minutes, I'm like, it's not happening. So I'd already been up.
Yeah.
So you start this ruck, and you're just one by one. And I was the last starter too. I remember I was the last person because, and then so the guy says, okay, go in that direction and you'll see cadre and they'll give you further instructions, but they don't say when or whatever. And we start at the bottom of Boulder Canyon. So we're rucking uphill in the middle of the night, oncoming traffic. You know, you have a headlamp, but you're just like, oh my God, I hope I don't get hit.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you're like, oh my God, I hope this dude is around the corner so I can start doing something else. Yeah. And so eventually, you know, there's a guy on the side of the road with a truck with a bunch of other dudes in it. And he's like, okay, that's it. Get in the truck. And then what they ended up doing was they drove us back to the park where we started. And that's where they call it the welcome party starts. So then you're just competing against one another. And it's like, low carb to that tree and back pays to be a winner. So you're running, you're going. And of course, pays to be a winner means if you win, you get a little bit of a break. And the other guys get hammered. And so it kind of went on like that the rest of the night until the next morning. I mean, I think by the time the sun was coming up, there were only two of us left. It was me and this other guy. And then it was just more of the same. It was just, you know, get in that duck pond, get out of the duck pond, duck walk around the duck pond, get back in the duck pond, do push-up. And it's a competition. It's like run around the pond. Okay, pays to be a winner. And so I'm like, I don't want to find out what it's like to not be a winner.
To be a loser.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was giving it all and without even thinking like, oh my God, we're like 12 hours in.
Yeah.
And so eventually, they were like, okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention this fact. At this point, we have our packs, but we're also carrying sandbags. So they're like, pick up your sandbag, baby, and head back in that direction. And so I pick it up, I'm walking, and then I just hear Ross number 11, stop. What did I do? And turn around and it's like, okay, what do you see? Oh, nothing. He's like, that's right. The other dude just quit.
Oh,
it's just you.
Wow.
So that was probably 13 hours.
You were the only one left?
I was the only one left after 13 hours. And so then I try not to think about the fact that I had another 35 hours to go.
Because even if you're the last one left, you still have to finish it wasn't that you win.
Yeah. No, you don't win. You win when you hit 48, 49 hours.
Yeah.
And so then it was just like, you know, you're down to yourself. It's just me. So I'm not competing, but it was just like, okay, run 5 miles. Okay, we're starting this ruck. Go there. I remember like the second night it was starting to get dark and they put me at the base of the Flatirons and like start hiking. So hike all the way up to the top of the Flatirons. And I got a little bit of a break up there. And then they're like, okay, come back down. And I remember that was the first time where I was like, I might be in trouble because there was a point going up where I had to scurry on all fours. And so coming back down on that, you know, I was like kind of on all fours and I thought I had a foothold and man, I put my weight on it and it just, whoops.
The pack and everything.
Everything just tumbled and I hit my head.
Yeah.
So one of the guys was a medic.
Okay.
So, you know, he kind of does the check. You okay? Do you know where you are? What day is it? What are you doing? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm fine. He's like, do you want to quit? I was like, no, I want to keep going. And so then we got back to the bottom and they're like, you can have a break, refill your water bottle, use the bathroom if you need to. So I go and I use the bathroom and I start peeing and it's pink. And so I'm like, oh,
that's not good.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, but I knew, you know, cause I was like, I did my homework.
Yeah.
And I knew that, you know, if it's pink lemonade, you're okay. There's something called a march hematuria, right? And so when you're rucking a long time and that pack is on your back and it's just kind of like impacting your kidneys, you can get a little bit of blood in your urine.
I didn't know that.
So there's march hematuria, which is kind of like pink lemonade looking.
Okay. And
then there's rhabdo, which is like your urine looks like Coke. That's an emergency. You can die from that.
Right.
And so that was kind of the first time I was like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to quit, but I know that if I see that, then I have to because, you know, maybe you don't die, but you go into renal failure and then you need dialysis, it's not worth that.
Right. Exactly.
So thankfully it didn't happen. I think the rest of the time was kind of a blur. I think sometime in the middle of that night, they were like, hey, go rack out I don't know how long, but they just said, go sleep on that strip of dirt. And I was like, dude, I was out before.
Thank you.
But I mean, I don't know if my head hit the ground before I was out. And then the funny thing was, I don't remember if I hallucinated this or what, but I just remember there was someone standing over me with a light. Maybe it was them checking to make sure I was still alive. But at that point, I just didn't care. I was like, whatever, dude, I'm going to go to sleep. And then the next thing I remember is being like, roster number 11, get up, get your stuff, kicking me. Not kicking, just nudging, right?
Yeah.
So I'm packing all my stuff up and, you know, I don't know what's going on, but I did know that at some point you did what was called a long walk, which was typically, you know, 25, 26 miles. But again, I didn't know. And so then they were trying to play like the mental games. They're like, hey man, you can quit now and we'll show you the time of your life. You know, we'll take you out, we'll do all this. And I'm like, no, I'm good. They're like, we'll buy you dinner or whatever. I'm like, I'm good with my Cliff Bar, you know?
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, get in the back of the truck. And so they drive me a little bit outside town. They're like, okay, get out. And then I remember this is a movement of undetermined distance and undetermined time. There is a standard. Go. And at the time, I guess it speaks to like how tunnel vision I was at the time. But I start walking and you know, they were kind of taking pictures, which I didn't see until, of course, after it was over. Yeah. And I start walking and I'm walking up this road and I'm like, God, man, this is super steep. Like, I mean, it's an effort to put one foot in front of the other. And then after I finished and they were like, yeah, here are the pictures that we took at that. And I still have the picture. It's me, I'm going, and there's a sign right next. It says steep mountain road ahead. I didn't even see that thing, but that road, man, it just went up forever and ever and ever and ever. And every now and then they would just like pop out of nowhere and be like, you need water? I'm like, geez, where do you come from? And
it was just the two guys, or
it was just the two guys. Yeah, it was it was the two guys and unbeknownst to me, so there was a guy who had finished an earlier selection and he lived in Boulder.
Oh, cool.
So he was like, yeah, I saw you out there on the road. And I'm like, dude, where were you? I mean, I was just like, at some point it was just one foot in front of the other. And I remember, because you can't have a watch, so you don't know how long you've been going, you know how far you've been going. And I'm not from up there, so I don't really know where I'm going. Yeah. I just know I'm like dead in the mountains. And I remember going through this one little town and I'm walking through the town and there's a bank and there's a clock. You know how banks have clocks outside on the sign. So I'm like, oh man, okay, it's this time. So I've probably been out here, I don't know, I've probably been walking for about 5 hours or something. And so I walked through and they stopped me. And I think they could tell I was kind of like starting to not come apart, but they could tell I was kind of overheating because now it's the day. And this was in June and it was still pretty warm. And they're like, okay, there was a reservoir. So they're like, go get in the water. So I get in the water. He's all right, come out, cool off. He's like, okay, start walking again. And here's the other thing that, and I have a picture of this too. So I start walking. And again, remember I said, like, I thought I had been out there. At this point, I'm like, I must have been out here for 6 or 7 hours. Yeah. And I walk by a sign and it says like Boulder, 16 miles. Oh. And I'm thinking, there's no way they're going to have me walk all the way back to Boulder. Just that would be ridiculous. Yeah. And then I'm going, I'm like, the road's kind of windy and I'm thinking, okay, at any point they're going to be there. They're going to put me in the truck. I'm going to go do something else. And I'm going, next thing I know, Boulder city limits. So I walk all the way there, go back, we hit the park. And then they're like, you're failing. You're not meeting the standard. You did all this for nothing. Why'd you waste your time? Why'd you waste our time? You know, stuff like that. And then I remember thinking like, just please don't make me get back in the water. Cause the creek, you know, it's snow melt. So it was freezing. Yeah. Yeah. And the first night they had us in there doing like flutter kicks and push-ups and all this stuff. And I was just like, man, don't make me get back in the water. And they had me in this front leaning position, you know, like kind of push up position with the ruck, just standing. And they're like, okay, you know, knock out 10. That's with the whatever 48 pounds with the water on my back. And I'm throwing it up like, you know, I go down, boom, relax. So, I just collapse and then I like push one out. I don't know that my hips even got off the ground. And I'm just kind of like doing that. And they're like, you're failing. You're going back in the water. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, stand up. You're going back in. And so he's like, all right, turn around. And I turn around and there are some dudes holding an American flag and they say, congratulations, you finished.
Oh, there we go.
And I was just like, it took me a second to process. Yeah. I'm like, wait, it's over. I don't have to get back in the water. It's over.
Not if you don't want to.
Yeah. And so that was it. I mean, sorry, that was a long ride. No, that's not what we're here to talk about. But even though it was 12 years ago, it was like, it was just yesterday.
And you know, what's awesome about that actually, and I'm glad you brought it up because, and I kind of want to talk more about like how you got to opening your company. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about this, like grind it out, just go. And to kind of like segue into like the energy system stuff, mm-hmm. I've trained a lot of those guys where it's like, they can grind forever, right? Yeah. They can go forever. And we're talking like, I had a guy who had like 23 practices a week, right? That's between wrestling, BJJ, striking, conditioning, strength. Yeah, all of that. Yeah. And then it's like, all right, man, I don't want you to do anything this weekend. Go for like a light hike. And they're like, cool. And they come back in like, hey, coach, I ran the dunes this weekend. You're like, well, what are you talking about? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like what you're talking about is that was like you're grinding it out. You're just getting through. And when it comes to like, even like these younger BJJ guys that I hope to work with, and I am working with some of them, where it's like, why is it important to understand like energy system demands and like when is it appropriate to like grind and when is it appropriate to like go like hard and like what would you say about those guys? Because the reason I bring that up is because those guys, I would have them throw a medicine ball against the wall, and I'm like, and this is no disrespect, but I'm like, how are these guys knocking people out? There's no power.
Yeah,
it's like, but they're like, I'm just gonna go, coach. Yeah. Tell me when to stop. But I'm like, I just want you to throw it 3 hard times. That's it, right? So, you know, like, what would you say about that? Like those guys, like,
I think you have to be intentional, because there is a place for grinding. Yeah. I mean, typically that place for grinding is like when you're in the event and you're not going to quit. Maybe you're tapped out. That's when you reach into that sort of part of your psyche and say like, you know, this guy's gonna have to kill me to beat me or something to that effect. Okay. But when you're training, you have to be more intentional, especially with BJJ, because BJJ, I mean, it's really at its base it's an intermittent activity. And by that, I mean, sometimes you're going 100%, right? Mm-hmm. And other times you're literally on your back laying down. Now you got somebody on top of you and side control top, which is no picnic, but your energy demands are not very great at that moment. I mean, of course, if you're trying to escape or something, but I think you have to, when you're training, you have to be intentional and you have to kind of take a step back and say, what are the requirements of what I'm going to be asked to do? And then how do I train each one of those? And we can talk about the systems, right? Yeah. So, you know, if we look at it from a bioenergetic perspective, you know, we can generate, well, if we take it back to like the most basic fact that we need to know is we need ATP to power life, really. Just you and I sitting here, we're producing ATP to live, to breathe. And then when it comes to a physical activity, you need ATP to make your muscles contract, right? And so it's how do you generate that ATP, that currency of energy? So we have a few systems that we can do that. Mm-hmm. So we have the quick system, which is what's called the creatine phosphate system. And what that is you have ATP and it's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So there's 3 phosphate groups. You cleave off one of those phosphate groups, that creates energy and it powers your muscular contraction. So you need to regenerate that ATP. That's the name of the game. You want to go from ADP, adenosine diphosphate, so 2 phosphates, to adenosine triphosphate. So you need to regenerate that ATP. One of the fastest and the initial way we do that is we take a phosphate group from creatine phosphate. And now you take that phosphate, you put it on ADP, you have ATP. That's going to fuel an effort of 8 to 10 seconds, something like that. And so you think, okay, well, what am I doing in jiu-jitsu that's gonna utilize that fuel, that energy system, doing a shot really quickly, getting in and throwing someone really quickly. So there's a place for that, right? And we can kind of, at some point, we can talk about, creatine. That's the whole point behind taking creatine.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Okay. Yeah.
Because you're increasing your creatine phosphate stores by taking creatine. And so you're basically increasing the bank of phosphate groups to recreate that ATP from ADP, after those really short, intense efforts.
And so you explained to me before, it's like that creatine's we're not utilizing that in the moment after taking it. It's like you said, like we're storing it. We're using what we already have in our system. Right. And then later on it helps replenish or.
Yeah. You're building the bank.
Okay.
When you take it. And that's why you don't have to take creatine. There's some things it's okay, take it at this time, on this day, under this set of circumstances, with food, without food, before, a meal, after a meal, whatever. With creatine, doesn't matter.
Okay.
You just need to take, historically, there was this thought that you needed to do a loading phase with like 20 grams a day for, 7 to 10 days, and then you go to 5 grams. But when you take that much, you can get some of the sort of side effects, the GI issues. As it turns out, you don't really need that. You can just start taking 5 grams a day. And as long as you're just taking it consistently, you're going to build those stores up.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I remember, I should mention that you're a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And
well, so, I don't feel like it these days, but technically I have a brown belt in my closet.
You have an excuse, for that knee. But I would say, I remember I was like, man, I was holding my stomach, and I remember being like, oh man, and you're like, what's wrong? And it was like 5:30 in the morning. I was like, man, my creatine's just like sitting right here. Yeah. You're like, you don't need to take that before class. And I was like, oh really? And I was just, it was just like, okay.
It's like this aha moment. Yeah, like, man, exactly. I guess I don't have to have a stomach ache.
Exactly. Like every time I come to train. So yeah. And then, so anyways, yeah, that was helpful for me to know. Like timing didn't matter as much. Cause I always was told like right before your workout. And then some people were like, do it before and do it after. Like sandwich your workouts. Yeah. So,
No, I think as long as you take it consistently, okay, that's the key. So awesome. You don't want to like take it for a couple of days and then you don't take it for 3 or 4, and then you take it for 1, and you don't take it for 5 or something like that. You need to be consistent with it.
Okay.
So that's one way we can generate ATP, the fastest way, because you're just you're just taking a phosphate group from another molecule and putting it on a different molecule. Mm-hmm. So then you get into the next one, which is glycolysis. So that is, what's referred to as like an anaerobic metabolism, right? Because you're not needing oxygen for this. So you're breaking down a molecule of glucose, and then you're producing, so if you break down a molecule of glucose, you're going to get 2 ATPs out of that. And that happens just in the cell. And that will power you, 60 seconds to 120 seconds. Now, as it turns out, and we'll come back to this, all of these systems are kind of working at the same time. Mm-hmm. But there are some that are sort of predominating depending on the effort. And then lastly, you have what's called the oxidative system. And that's where you're really getting a lot of bang for your buck, right? So you're either metabolizing glucose or fatty acid. And if you metabolize glucose, you're going to get 36 molecules of ATP from that.
Okay.
But the problem with oxidative phosphorylation is what it's called, is it takes longer. So that's really the more the endurance event, that sort of thing. And then fat is the gold mine.
Right.
You're going to get 36 molecules of ATP from oxidative phosphorylation. But again, it depends. All of those systems are playing, and they all interact, right? And so and I think one of the things in jiu-jitsu, we kind of have this mentality of like, I got to do a bunch of hard rounds. I got to do a bunch of HIIT workouts, high intensity. And you're just focused on that one system, that glycolytic system. But what's really going to get you to be able to kind of go over and over and over and over again is having a well-trained aerobic system, oxidative system, without going into the weeds, of course, there's the energy production, but then there's also the dealing with the metabolites of glycolysis, which the obligate result of glycolysis is lactate, or, as it's known, lactic acid.
Yeah.
Probably another conversation. We can go into the weeds there when, however you want to, but having that good aerobic system is going to help you manage those metabolites and recover faster. And so I think anyone who does jiu-jitsu knows what it feels like to really kind of maybe go out a little too hot. And, you know, you do a scramble, you know, where you're trying to get that superior position. That's glycolytic, right? You're using that high octane energy source, but you're also creating those metabolites. And how are you going to clear that? Well, that's your aerobic system. And so if you don't have that system trained up well, and you do this intense scramble, you generate all these metabolites, you're gonna gas out. Right. And so you're not going to be able to do the next one because you might be right on the verge of kind of escaping or getting out, and your opponent reverses, and now you're in a bad spot, and now you're trying to recover, and they're trying to throw on a collar choke or you know, whatever it may be, and you're kind of done.
Is that where that grind mentality now? Like, you know, I told you this earlier this morning that one of the black belts, Ryan, said, like, why do you guys talk about having being gassed out and then having somebody smash you? Is that and that's what you're saying, like that's where you ride it out at that point, but your energy system wise, you're not gonna,
if you haven't trained that, you're in a bad spot. Right. Like if you have trained that system, then you got to ride it out. You got to try and defend against that choke. In the back of your mind, you know, like, hey, I'm recovering right now. Right. I'm controlling my breath, and my energy systems are doing what they can to kind of recharge. You know, you can look at it like that, like how fast do you recharge from that effort that you put out? And so you want to be able to recharge faster than your opponent, right? If you're in that inferior position, you can defend. And here's the other thing is you're just going to be more present. You're going to be able to think better. You're going to make better decisions. Your technique's going to be better. And you know, one of my favorite sayings, that maybe my all-time favorite saying, is that fatigue makes cowards of us all. And so you find yourself in a bad position, you know, side control bottom, a dude that's heavier than you, who's fitter than you, and you're gassed. I mean, your time, you know, it's limited. Your days are numbered.
You're tapping out to just someone taking your back.
You're
like, I'm
exactly.
out, man.
Exactly. So I think you know, those are kind of the three main energy systems that you got to think about when it comes to putting together a training plan for jiu-jitsu.
So I like to, and I won't say it as good as you will, but like what I always would tell my guys, I would say, all right, just to kind of lay it out for you. And I know I've told you this and you said there's some tweaks in here, but like I would say this aerobic system feeds everything else is what I would say. So if I have a bigger aerobic base, then, and it sounds weird how I say it, but I'm like, you grow your potential in these systems. So I can, but the thing is, I won't be able to give more of that fast energy system. I'll just be able to be like, how do you describe that? Like I'll be able to tap into it better. I'll be able to tap into it more often. Like, how do I explain that? Because I would say you can get more out of this system if you have a bigger base here.
Exactly. I mean, that's a perfect way of saying it. I mean, you can think of it as the analogy of like a pyramid, right? Like the bigger the base, the higher you can build it. Right. And so by doing the training for both of those is different, right? Like if you're looking to build that base, that's a lot of low intensity. And I think that's what, you know, people who are, because, you know, people who do jiu-jitsu are, they get after it, right? And they kind of have that mentality. We can have that mentality of like, if I'm not hurting, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
And that's kind of the absolute wrong attitude to have when it comes to looking at building your base, because it's really those, you know, and this has happened a moment, you know, I'm sure people have heard of the zone 2 training. That's where you get all those positive adaptations to build that base. And that's at a low intensity, low to moderate intensity level. And then you can look at it. So the higher your VO2 max is, the amount of oxygen your body can consume at a maximal effort, the higher that is, the higher your turbo system is, right? Your glycolytic system. And so the adaptations that you get to have a high VO2 max, there are two components. There's a central component and a peripheral component. And the central component is really, at the end of the day, it's your cardiac output. It's how much blood flow can you pump out to your body. And that's a heart rate times stroke volume. So stroke volume being how much blood with each squeeze of your left ventricle, heart rate, how many times your heart's beating, right? How many squeezes you're getting per minute. And so that is the central component. Peripheral component is what's your muscle fiber type, what's the capillary density of your muscles, how many little small vessels that can supply blood, and by that supply oxygen ultimately to your muscles. How many and how efficient are your mitochondria, the little, air quote powerhouses of the cell. And so those two things go into that high end, central component, peripheral component. Even by doing the low intensity zone 2 work, you're working on those peripheral adaptations.
Wow.
So you're increasing the capillarization, you're increasing the number and efficiency of mitochondria. So you're getting something out of that. So even when you're building, to go back to what you said, you're building that wide base. The wider that base is, the more peripheral adaptations you have, the higher you can build that top end.
Okay.
So yeah, it's perfect, it's spot on.
Okay. So, and then with like, in regards to like BJJ guys, I've talked to some guys that were like, well, I build that base with my jiu-jitsu because I'm not going
oh my gosh
all out, right? So that's not,
oh my god, that's a that's a pet peeve. I'll get into it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So then but my understanding of it is like zone 2 is hard to do, and not because it's hard, it's because it's kind of boring. Right. So that's why it's like you're not really like, you're in there, you're kind of, even if you're like, I mean, we have a couple guys we know that just kind of like cruise.
Yeah.
But there's still moments of like, you're probably not spending 30 minutes to an hour in that zone.
Mm-mm.
Right. So there's really no way that you're
not getting those benefits.
You're not getting those benefits, the same benefits. So like what I've been doing for my guys that on my program right now is like, I know that it's boring. One guy's a runner already. So I'm like, oh yeah, like you can just run. You know what I mean?
But even something there, not to interrupt, sorry to interrupt.
Tell me.
But one thing with running is a hard, unless you're a very well-trained or highly trained runner.
Okay, yeah.
You're going to be out the door and you're going to be in zone 3.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
So it needs to be like a walk, like a...
I mean, yeah, it's a struggle. Now, like I've tested people here who are, high-end marathoners. Those guys, they can go out and do a zone 2 workout because they're just so highly trained.
Right.
But you take your average person and you tell them to go do a zone 2 workout and you tell them to run, I guarantee they're going to be in zone 3 or zone 4. And we can talk about why that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And it's even a problem if you are in the midst. Let's say you say, okay, go do your zone 2 and you're going to do 45 minutes of a zone 2 run. And let's say they get out there and they get 20 minutes in and they've been like on it. They have not deviated from zone 2. Then they hit a hill or the wind comes or I don't know, someone passes them. And they don't like that. So they step up the pace a little bit. So now you're going out of zone 2, you're going into zone 3, lower zone 3, maybe even mid to high zone 3. The problem there is once you start generating those, you're shifting from primarily a fat metabolism to increasingly relying on carbohydrate metabolism or glycolysis. Mm-hmm. And remember I said glycolysis, the obligate result of glycolysis is the production of lactate. So you're going from like fat metabolism primarily to carbohydrate metabolism and generating that lactate. Lactate does two things. It does a lot of things, but in this context, it's going to inhibit the breakdown of fatty acid, and it's going to inhibit the transport of the fatty acids across the mitochondrial membrane. So in not nerd speak, what that means is that you've inhibited those adaptations because you're not able to access those fat stores. And that's going to last for about 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
So even if you hit this, let's say our sample runner or example runner, they're 20 minutes in, they get after it for 5 minutes and then they back off. They're like, oh man, I'm out of zone 2. Let me back off. Mm-hmm. They're going to recover from a cardiovascular perspective pretty quickly. But from a bioenergetic perspective, it's going to take another 15 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
So they've just kind of wasted that 15 minutes. And that's why it's really important to be diligent when you're going in to do your zone 2. And that's why, like, when I see a patient here or someone and they ask, okay, well, based on the testing, the assessments, I do a DEXA and they have increased visceral fat or adipose fat. And, we want to, really preferentially hit that zone 2. And they say, okay, well, what should I do? Should I run? Like, no. I mean, really rucking is going to be, it's because it's controllable, right? Yeah. Like you're walking and you just add a little weight and it's easy to dial into that zone. Just kind of as a corollary to that, I think it's really important to know what your zone 2 is. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can estimate it, you can do like the talk test, but and this is my own personal, philosophy. I just like objective things, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to know, what is it? It's 110 to 125.
Yep.
And there's no guesswork there. And so that's where you do the testing and you get that. But anyway, sorry to hijack, but I just wanted to say, like, the running part, it's very tricky for people to do zone 2 workouts running. Now, another thing you can do is like indoors on a treadmill, because it's a totally controlled environment.
Yeah.
You set the incline of the treadmill at 2 to 3%, and then you just increase the speed until you hit your zone, and then you just cruise for your 30, 45 minutes.
Okay.
I'd say 30 minutes is, bare minimum to start getting those adaptations.
Okay.
I think 45 is probably better.
So, and I don't think that we'll have time to run through everything,
right?
But I want to say, part 2. And I'm so pumped because I want to keep going. But what about? And I used to call this durability training, and a lot of my guys, especially the high end like pro UFC guys, like those guys that were just getting after like the 23 workouts, whatever. I would have them do durability training, and it wasn't necessarily that I was trying to train their like cardio or conditioning. I was like, I just need you to move without, like, I need to keep you uninjured. Like at this point, like you're just like breaking down every time I turn around, like something's going on. Right. Yeah. So essentially, and I didn't make this up. I got this from somewhere. But essentially, like, I just like set up 10 stations and I'm like, all right, we're going to move for 20 to 30 minutes. And you're just like, they have a weight vest on. It's like, they're going to do farmer carry for like a minute. And they're doing like slow control rows. Yeah. And we do have them on a heart rate. We do have them like monitored. Is that similar? Is that fine? Or is it just too much of this kind of going on
for zone 2?
For zone 2. Yeah.
I think it's too much, because you just never know when a person's going to hit that excursion.
Yep.
And they're going to hit in zone 3.
And if we accidentally go over, sorry, but even if you accidentally go,
you're starting to generate those byproducts like glycolysis. And so you're going to kind of shut down those zone 2 adaptations. And that's, you touched on something else that's, I think, kind of common is, I've talked to people and they're so like, okay, well, I did, jazzercise or, whatever it may be, even jiu-jitsu. I mean, I had this conversation with someone who did jiu-jitsu, and it's like, okay, my wife, they wore their Garmin during the rounds. Right. And they say, okay, well, it says I did, 30 minutes of zone 2 or, 40 minutes of zone 2 and in the Wednesday class, right? Which is just all effort all the time. Right. And so, I'm like, yeah, it says you did that, but you got to keep in mind that those trackers, those watches, they're just looking at your heart rate and how much time your heart is beating at a particular rate. So what I mean by that is they're catching you as you're kind of on your way up to zone 4. You got to go through zone 2, and it's counting that time as zone 2, when in reality, you're not getting those adaptations. You're just kind of stopping. You're just passing through. Wow. Yeah. And then as you come back down and recover, you're passing through zone 2 again, but it's logging that as zone 2 time. Yep. But it's not really beneficial from the perspective of what we want to get out of zone 2.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I think that's like awesome for like starting there, and then we can cover the rest of I would love to keep on diving into it.
I know you got to pick up.
This is like great, especially for the first like time doing this for me. And like call that part 1. But I just wanted you to just real quick talk about like what this place is. Like what are you doing here at your business?
Okay, here in this practice. So this is what I call a performance medicine clinic. And that's really sort of whatever a person, client, patient, whatever you want to say, what their goals are. My objective is to help facilitate the achievement of that goal, right? So if someone comes in and they say, I want to do a 40-mile bike ride in 2 months. So okay, well, let's see where you are. Like, I think my overall philosophy is we got to assess, and then we intervene, and then we sort of achieve or thrive or whatever. Or we really iterate, right? Like, we assess, we intervene, we reassess, and then we make any adjustments as necessary. So what does that look like? One component, it's getting a DEXA scan, seeing what their body composition is, which is the gold standard of measuring that. It's really like the metabolic testing, doing some resting metabolic assessment, doing what we call active metabolic assessment or VO2 Max test. And from that, we're going to get this wealth of data to help guide us in training towards whatever that objective is. And then we use them as tools to follow progress. So, using the guy as an example who wants to do a 40-mile bike ride, we get a baseline. Okay, your VO2 max is 35. Okay, we need to get that up. These are your training zones. This is your zone 2, based on your physiology, because we're analyzing how you're metabolizing your substrates, carbohydrates, and fats. And from that data, we know exactly where your fat max is and where your crossover point is. So that's your zone 2. And so I can prescribe, okay, go and do X workout, and these are your targets. Don't go above, don't really go below. And so using all those tools, we can put together a plan, and then we can have the person go out and do that plan. And then 3 months later, they come back, and then we see, okay, how's the needle moving? Yeah. Is it moving hopefully in the right direction? If it's not, then something we need to tweak. And so then we make those adjustments. So that's one component.
Okay.
The other component, I have the suite of recovery tools. So infrared sauna, cold plunge, compression therapy, comprehensive blood work to see, make sure everything is okay. Because one thing with, heavy high load training, they can have some perturbations in their hormone profile, and that can be hard to kind of bounce back from. So just really kind of looking at everything and making a plan. And, you do get people who come in, and there's different therapies that we can offer, depending on what that person's situation is.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's probably the overall sort of summary of what this place is. It's really about being able to perform at a higher level, and it just depends on what the person's goals are.
Yeah. And from my experience, like, 'cause I've sent my clients to you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a major event. It's just like they want to feel better. Like, they're not feeling great, and they just like, man, I know you've helped me, you've helped my dad. You know what I mean? Like, so there's this other component to it. Like with my training, like, I have people come in and they're like, well, don't post that video because I'm not one of the athletes. And I was like, man, you're my brand, like all of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
totally.
Like we want to help people, and you're helping people on another level. And I love that, because that's what I tell people. Like, they say, what do you do? Like, what makes you different? And I don't know if it makes me different, but I say, we assess. Like, you come for massage, I'm watching you walk. I'm watching you move. I'm like, I want to talk to you about your daily patterns, and I want to see how you're interacting with your environment, because maybe you're hurt because you trip, but maybe you trip because of something else going on.
Right. Your gate's off.
Exactly. So we're like, that stuff. So it's like, let's just not fix you for now. Let's try to fix you long-term. Or help you long-term.
Exactly. So. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it really does touch. I don't want to give the impression that this is just a place for like athletes. I mean, the overwhelming majority of people who come through, they want to improve their health span and their lifespan, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's something we can get into, when we speak again. But it's like, we know that what we do now is going to dictate what 20 years from now looks like. And it can be hard to keep sight of that, because we can have this, well, it's not broke, don't fix it type mentality. But you can have things going on that you're just totally unaware of, like visceral fat, for instance, which is a risk factor for cardiometabolic disease down the road. The only way you're going to know if you kind of have elevated visceral fat is to get a DEXA scan. And I've had guys come in and they'll, you look at them and they're normal. I mean, they don't look overweight. Maybe, maybe they're carrying a little bit extra, but they certainly don't look horribly out of shape. And we'll do the DEXA, and then we go in the office and okay, well, your physical fats, it's over 100 centimeters squared in terms of area. So you're getting into the higher risk category. Like, wait, what? How's that possible? And it is, and you don't know. And so that is a big component. I mean, I think probably more people have come through and just wanting to feel better, have more energy, be healthier, be here for their kids or their grandkids 15, 20 years down the road. So
well, it's awesome, man, what you do. I'm excited. I'm excited to do a little more of this stuff.
Yeah, me too, man. So, it was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Man. That was awesome.
Yeah.